I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I'm Andrew DeWolf.
And I'm Brianna Jones.
And welcome to Musicals with Cheese, a podcast where I try to get Andrew and Bree to like musical theater. How are you doing today, Andrew?
Wow, you're really doing a heck of a job getting us to like musical theater, you know that?
Well, this isn't exactly my fault this time.
Oh, who are you going to blame this one on?
Me? You're going to blame it on me?
Oh, Bree, it's your fault. You are... Wait, we can reenact Camelot right now. Spoilers, our show is on Camelot.
I'll be Lancelot, because he's obviously the best.
So I'm King Arthur, and Brianna, you're Genevieve. Oh my god, you and I are destined to be married, and we're kind of bonding, and we're great. Everything's going good. We're married now. I need to fetch some knights for my round table. Hey, you, sir.
Wow, I'm a knight. Can I join the round table? I think it's a great idea.
Well, I was foretold to me by a wizard that you and I would meet. So yeah, come join our round table. Fun times had by all.
Cool. I'm like the best knight, also like way better than all of the other ones.
I'm sure you are. All right. You're selling too hard now.
Man, I'm selling the fact that I'm the best knight really hard.
Yeah, you are. In fact, I'd say it's too much. Speaking of which, meet my wife, Guinevere.
Hi, I'm the best knight in all of the kingdom, and I'm way better than all the other ones.
I'm gonna leave you guys alone because I want you guys to get closer as friends.
Wow, we are totally just friends.
Just friends.
Definitely just friends.
And nothing more.
This improv game is falling apart. You guys have ran right into a wall.
Jess, you need to come back in and say, oh my god, what are you doing? Everyone betray me.
What are you doing? Everybody betray me. I fed up with this world, but I don't want you guys beheaded or burnt at the stake. So go out, be free.
All right, we're going to go be free in France. Please don't start a war here.
I'll try. Hey, little boy, why don't you tell my story?
Also, I'm starting a war.
Camelot! Cue the music, Bree!
A law was made a distant moon ago here. July and August cannot be too hot. And there's a legal limit to the snow here in Camelot. The winter is forbidden till December, and exits March the 2nd on the dot. By order, summer lingers through September in Camelot.
Camelot is a musical with music by Frederick Loewe and lyrics and book by Alan J. Lerner, based on The Once and Future King by T.H. White. The musical opened on Broadway at the Majestic Theater on December 3rd of 1960, and it ran for 873 performances and 2 previews, being one of the more long-running musicals of all time. And the plot is King Arthur founds the Kingdom of Camelot and the Knights of the Round Table, who fight for justice and right, only to see his ideals crumble when his wife Guinevere falls in love with his favorite knight, Sir Lancelot. Husband gets cucked by wife and comes home and finds it. You'll never guess what happens next.
You know, they describe that like that's the plot, but that second part doesn't even happen until like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's 2.5 hours. The movie's three and some hours.
Yeah, the actual drama doesn't even start until it's basically over.
This musical's rough. This is a rough musical. And this is probably one I wouldn't have tried to show you, but it was a Patreon request from Carrie Ahern. So I hope this isn't your favorite.
I mean, it's not my favorite. If someone likes it, they're allowed to, but this is like the musical version of NyQuil.
It is a rough watch in all versions. But Andrew, let me tell you a thing. Critics did not like this. They say the same thing you and I will probably say about it, that the book is very rough, very overbloated, not particularly interesting, not engaging. The songs have high points and mostly kind of stagnate, but the high points are very, very high because you got 2 talented songwriters.
Yeah.
However, audiences just love this show. They ate it up and went as often as they could, leading it to being a surprise financial success. This is the original Jekyll and Hyde. This is the original Frank Wildhorn.
Did they give out booze or something at the shows, like for free? Like, Why were people going to see this?
I don't know. Maybe they just really like Richard Burton, but it was very popular enough to get adapted into a movie like 7 years after the Broadway run.
And the movie is somehow 3 hours long?
Yes, because they add in a lot of fight scenes. They tend to linger on a lot of shots. They had these really expensive locations that they wanted to take full advantage of, so they kind of just spent a lot of time lingering on it. Also, a problem with the movie is it takes itself very, very seriously. There is not an ounce of joy in it. As well, the musicality of it really doesn't work. Richard Harris is a lot of things, all things wonderful, but not a singer in the way that the character of Arthur really needed. And it changes things for the worst, and really, it was thought like, hey, a movie could tighten up the problems with the musical, but it didn't. It made it worse.
I mean, a movie probably could have if you kept it at 2 hours and then added in fight scenes and stuff to make it more interesting. But they didn't. Apparently, they didn't do that. They just were like, let's keep it all the same and then add an hour of fight scenes also.
Exactly. I am curious how you would describe this plot. I texted you earlier today, and I also tweeted it, that this is basically the plot of The Room, and I feel like since there's so little to talk about of this musical, we should kind of lean into that.
Sure, well, let's talk about the actual plot before we
Yes.
compare it to anything else. So it's sort of a retelling of basic Arthurian legend after the early days of King Arthur, basically. So like he's already king, Camelot's already a thing.
The
He
Sword and
has
the Stone, that's
Excalibur.
all ancient history. Like that.
That's already happened, yeah. So King Arthur is worried that about his wife, who he's not technically married to at the beginning of the show, right?
Right. He just meets her. It's his betrothed.
Yeah, he is destined to marry her. He has to. But he's worried about it. And then he's talking to Merlin, and Merlin's like, "Oh, everything's gonna be whatever. It's fine. I don't care." Merlin is
I'm gonna disappear from the
nothing.
musical.
Yeah, Merlin is an extremely nothing character in this, which is a shame because it's like he's a wizard. You'd think he'd be interesting, but no.
He would be an easy out for the plot.
It's true. So Merlin is in like 2 scenes, one of which is just him vanishing and going away forever. So King Arthur meets Guinevere, his wife, and he's like, you know what, actually, I like you, you're fine. And then they're like, cool. So then they go back to Camelot, which is like a perfect place, and he wants to make it even better, so he's like, you know what, let's make the round table, and everything will be wonderful. All of the knights will come and be peaceful instead of slaughtering peasants all the time. You know, that'll be really cool. Lancelot shows up, and he's like, yeah, this is a really great idea. Also, I'm the greatest ever.
C'est moi! C'est moi! I'm French.
Yeah.
C'est moi.
Yeah, and Arthur likes Lancelot, but nobody else does. And the queen is like, you know what? I'm going to force you to fight the 3 strongest knights at the table all on the same day in this tournament. And Lancelot easily beats them all. And then Guinevere's like, actually, I'm in love with Lancelot now. Haha, sick. But they don't tell anybody, and they keep it a secret for like 3 years.
Just like Anakin and Padme.
Yeah. Then there's this bad guy character that shows up and does nothing.
He like hold on. This bad guy character, the way Andrew frames that, makes it seem like he comes in like halfway through Act 1, right? No, like two-thirds through Act 2.
Yeah, 2/3 through Act 2, he shows up and then does nothing. Like, literally, his purpose in the show is to sing one or 2 songs and then stop existing. He literally doesn't even show up in, like, the actual climax of the show. He doesn't need to be there. He doesn't have to exist, but he does.
He's a threat to the throne that you should introduce at a much earlier point.
Yeah. So then, well, the bad guy does one thing, and that's convince Morgan Le Fay to trap King Arthur out in the woods with invisible magic walls. So he gets trapped out in the woods, which you could have done that with anything. You could have just had him have to go on a trip somewhere for some reason. Like, you didn't have to do this whole... It's like, whatever, but they do that. And then Lancelot and Guinevere are like, oh, he's gone. He's going to be gone for at least the night. We should meet up. And then King Arthur comes back and is like, oh my god, they're together. You need to leave. And then they have to leave to France because King Arthur doesn't want to kill them. He can't do it, even though he wants to because of the laws or something that he set up. It's a bunch of ridiculous crap. And then he starts a war with France and tells a little kid, like, tell my story. Haha, bye. And then it ends.
Bree, does that not sound like the most engaging musical you have ever heard of? Does that not sound thrilling and chilling and fulfilling?
It sounds very thrilling.
Okay, it sounds thrilling, but remember this, okay? The part from where he marries the queen to all the way up to when he meets Lancelot and all that, that's Act 1, and then Act 2, like, that isn't the ending part there. That's like introducing a bad guy, him going out into the woods for no reason, introducing Morgan Le Fay in an entire scene, and there's so much nothing. There is so much nothing in this show.
You guys said the movie was 3 hours?
The movie I guess, is 3 hours.
Well, how long is the musical?
But 2.5 hours.
The stage version that we watched, and for reference, you guys were using the Lincoln Center 2008 production with like Stacy Keach and Christopher Lloyd and Fran Drescher, like the random sitcom stars interjected into this musical.
Yeah, and Christopher Lloyd is playing a character that I didn't even mention because he does nothing. He doesn't have to be there.
Comic relief, kind of.
Yeah, we could have had Merlin be the comic relief if you wanted to run that way and just keep him around for the whole thing. I don't know.
Anything you could have given to that character, you could have easily have given to Merlin.
Yeah, but Merlin has to vanish, like, not
He's
even
too
halfway
powerful.
into the show.
They Professor X'd him. Professor X could easily solve every situation. We gotta put him in a bubble or something where he can't use his powers.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really boring and really overly long. You could trim at least a half an hour out of this, if not more.
It's a rough sit, and I'm always very cautious of like musicals I don't know because I don't tend to know like what the modern consensus of the musical is. Like, so I put out a poll on Twitter asking, hey, what's your thoughts on the Camelot musical? Has it aged great? Like, do you feel like it's a good show? And everyone's like, songs are okay, very hard to watch.
And the songs are fine, although honestly, there isn't any song in here that I'm like, yeah, this song is a reason enough to keep the whole show around. Like, none of them are really that impressive. Like, there's ones that are like, okay, that was fine, but I don't know. It doesn't hold up the show at all.
I mean, I guess. But they apparently, Lerner and Lowe were really high off their My Fair Lady energy and really wanted to recreate the lightning in the bottle that was. So they literally brought back Julie Andrews, they brought in Richard Burton and a lot of the other cast members and just tried to recreate that, which was also a very, very long, like 3-ish hour musical. But this just does not, the story doesn't support it. It's an epic, but they focus on a love triangle.
If you're gonna tell the story of Arthurian legend in like a 2.5 hour plot, why not start back before the Sword and the Stone thing? Like, you know, you have a whole set of mythology here, and you're focusing on, like, the end, you know, like the very end bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's the least interesting part. Like, all these parts are not the ubiquitous things that we know about King Arthur. When you think of King Arthur, you think of...
Well, I mean, the Knights of the Round Table.
I mean, that's kind of like the ending. Like, he set up the knights, and that's the end.
Which I get that they wanted to do the tragic demise of the utopia that he builds or whatever. But, like, you can still do that and introduce... and have it be introduced later. You know, have Act 1 be building up to that, and then Act 2 is the demise of it or something. I don't know. Like, this whole thing here could be one act.
It could be, and it would be better. I agree. You need to take some deep scissors into this musical for it to work in any way, and they haven't done it. They honestly have not put the effort in.
All right, so The Room comparisons.
Let's go. Let's compare this to The Room.
Okay,
you're tearing me apart, Guinevere.
King Arthur has this pathetic like energy to him. But he also has this like perfect man thing going on, whereas he's like idealistic, you know? And I kind of feel like that's what Tommy Wiseau wanted his character to be in The Room. Like this perfect nice guy, you know? Like he's just nice to everyone.
He's a character that everyone likes, no one has a bad thing to say about, and has a lot of friends.
Exactly. And King Arthur is all of those things. There is literally one person in the show that doesn't like King Arthur.
Literally only one. And even the one that is like, but Arthur's my best friend, Lisa. Like, we can't be doing this.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, obviously, you have the King Arthur and is is Johnny. That's his name, right? Johnny in the room.
Yes.
Okay, Lancelot is Mark. I mean, Mark is like this man's man, kind of mysterious guy. But I think Lancelot sort of fits the mold pretty well. What do you think?
I think Lancelot fits the role of Mark very well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Mark,
like he's a sociopath in the same way that Mark kind of comes off as a sociopath in the room.
I mean, I kind of imagine there could be a scene where Lancelot is just like, oh, sorry, I was busy, and we don't know what he was doing, you know?
We just cut to Lancelot in his car, just sitting around, like, can you come over?
I'm very busy.
I'm busy.
Right now.
You know, Johnny's my best friend.
Now, where I'm gonna differ a little bit with you, in that I don't know if it's a perfect 1-to-1 here. Guinevere does like King Arthur, and she does.
You think
love
that
King
Lisa
Arthur.
doesn't like Johnny?
She says
already
multiple
ordered
times.
a pizza.
She says, well, I mean, she thinks of everything, but Lisa says multiple times in the room that she does not like Johnny. She doesn't love him.
She doesn't love him, but she likes him. He's always supported her in her job in the phone marketing business, the marketing business. That was Lisa's job.
Where I kind of differ with that is the room has this very heavy, like, women are
evil,
duplicitous and evil sort of vibe going for it. Whereas this show, it's a little lighter. It's like she obviously wants to cheat on King Arthur, but she's not as overtly evil about it as she is in the room. So
I think like she has fallen out of love with Arthur in a way that feels natural, in a way that an arranged marriage might, where then she naturally falls in love with Lancelot. And I think the arranged marriage is a very important part of her story.
Yeah.
And what separates her from Lisa.
Yeah. So Merlin, as far as the room, where does he fall? He can't really be in this.
Well, I know exactly who he is. The lawyer, Peter.
Oh.
Just disappears and is
Just
replaced by a different character.
I mean, they have a Denny character as well. I mean, Christopher Lloyd's character, who I can't even remember the name of, is just this Denny type, like, weird, doesn't make sense in the story, doesn't need to exist, just guy that just shows up and is just in scenes.
Okay. And Arthur's bastard that shows up in Act 2 and is the villain, Chris R.
No, I'm gonna disagree.
Oh, come on.
No. Chris R is the three men that are set up to fight Lancelot.
Okay. Yeah.
I think when Lisa really falls in love with Mark is when Mark saves Denny from those people. So from Chris R. And when Guinevere falls in love with Lancelot defeats the three other knights.
Okay, yep, I see your comparison and I agree. You've convinced me.
I don't think that there is a comparison with the bad guy in this, but I don't think there has to be, because in my version of this story, the bad guy doesn't exist. We just cut him from the show. He doesn't exist. The end.
I mean, there has to be someone. There's so many useless characters in the room. You can just give it Doggy. Doggy from the flower shop.
The bad guy is the me underwears guy.
Yes. Me underwears.
My God, why is there so much garbage in the room?
The room is a classic piece of art.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd rather watch that than Camelot, though, is the sad thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, how's your sex life?
Yeah. That feels something that Arthur would 100% ask Aunt Lancelot.
Honestly, he probably almost did at one point.
I mean, Arthur is so pathetic in this. Like, literally, it's so depressing how pathetic he is.
And the ending metaphorically is King Arthur killing himself. Like, metaphorically. It's him about to go off to war, and he's destroying his own legacy, and he's basically telling this kid, like, tell my story, because it's all over now, you know? Like, that's pretty much what he's saying.
I mean, you're not wrong. He's like, forgive me, God, which was Johnny's last words in the room.
Forgive me.
Who is Claudette, Lisa's mother? Come on.
I was gonna say that could be Merlin, but I don't know, because Merlin's the one arranging marriages and stuff. So.
And what about Michelle? Michelle, the girlfriend of Me Underwear's boy.
Dude, there's not enough characters in Camelot to fit the room. There's just too many characters in the room that are all so important and definitely necessary for the movie.
You know
the movie
what? When
wouldn't
you're right,
function
you're
as
right.
it wouldn't function if there wasn't a scene where the me underwears guy falls down and hits his head on a trash can in an alleyway. I mean,
What about
movie
when Peter falls down and hits his face on the concrete?
and then dies because he never comes back?
He is then replaced by Steven, who shows up to
always
the
play
party
so-
and is suddenly
just
very
wicked.
concerned about things, as if he was involved in the whole plot.
Okay, Steven. Oh no, who is Peter in Camelot? There's got to be like, is there a character that King Arthur is like divulging his stuff to?
I was gonna say Christopher Lloyd.
I guess, yeah, he's kind of like a duo. Like he has the personality of Denny, but the role of Peter.
Right. And then I guess that Merlin is also Steven,
Oh God.
where he just shows
All right.
up again and he's like, hey, I'm here now.
Do we have anything more to say about Camelot?
No, but I think it's time to compare our opinion to those of the theater critics when this show was first released. It is time for everyone's favorite segment of our show. It's Previews!
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
Actually, Bree, before we jump into this, I wanted to tell Andrew a fun fact about Camelot, which is the only fun fact I've got about this show.
Sure.
The show's original cast recording was a favorite bedtime listening to President John F. Kennedy, who was Lerner's classmate at Harvard University. Kennedy's favorite lines were in the final number, in which Arthur's knights a young boy and tells him to pass on the story of Camelot to future generations. Don't let it be forgot that once there was a spot for one brief shining moment that was known as Camelot. Since then, Camelot was been associated with the Kennedy administration. That's why his administration was called Camelot, because he really liked the musical Camelot.
That's disappointing. I thought he would have better taste.
Yeah, it's really dumb.
It's also for a political candidate, that is a very defeatist attitude to have. It's like, yeah, just remember that one time that we had the ideal and now it's gone.
one time I wanted to put a man into space, and then I got shot.
Oof, too soon.
Oh yeah, too soon. Have I told you guys about the conspiracy letters my dad wrote to the government after, like have I brought this up on the show, where he wrote a letter to the FBI, and I found these like 2 years ago, and he's like, I am very concerned of the lack of intelligence being released about the true way that John F. Kennedy was murdered, because I think it was a conspiracy for the CIA to murder him. And then the response letter was like, we are taking your concern very seriously. Thank you for your letter, Daniel.
Like, what
I'm
did
like-
he expect? Was he gonna, like, the FBI was gonna be like, yeah, you're right. The CIA was the one that
Oh,
did
he
it.
caught us!
You got us. You got us.
And he had to be like 10 at the time. Like, this is kind of adorable if you think about it.
Aw, well, at least they wrote him back.
Yeah, like everyone wrote everyone back in those days. There wasn't like the unresponded emails that I get like 50 of a day and I just don't reply to because I'm lazy. They're the FBI. They're gonna reply to every 10-year-old that writes them. Let's go into these reviews.
Harold Taubman of the New York Times said of the original 1960 production, unfortunately, Camelot is weighed down by the burden of its book. The storytelling is inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't disagree there. Even in the 60s, that was true.
And they never improved it.
They have not changed enough about that show to make it work yet. Maybe one day. But hey, they were hopeful when they were gonna announce a movie directed by a very famous director, Joshua Logan, I believe his name was, starring Richard Harris, who would go on to play Dumbledore before getting replaced by the better Dumbledore. So this is another opinion once that movie came out.
Bosley Crowther of the New York Times said of the 1967 film adaptation, if ever there was a Broadway musical that cried for a simple clarification and opening up of its story and its visual apparatus in a transfer to the screen, it was Alan J. Lerner's and Frederick Lowe's melodious but murky Camelot. It needed considerable fluffing and irreverent performing by the king and queen, originally Richard Burton and Julie Andrews, who was no fair lady but King Arthur's wife. Indeed, what is basically needed in its transfer to the screen was a drenching in cinema magic to remove all of the dull and pretentious patches of realism and romantic cliche that kept it from sparkling in the theater. And that's what we all hoped it would have. Well, it hasn't. Alas, it is the same sort of clutter of supernaturalism ornately displayed with conventional romantic realism, all set to music as it was on the stage, only more so because of the extravagance of Warner Brothers and the massiveness of the Panavision screen.
So, bad adaptation of a bad musical, or even an accurate adaptation of a bad musical, is what I'm going to be very I'm very curious what the Dear Evan Hansen movie is going to be like, because I feel like it's going to be very similar to this review, to be honest.
They're not going to fix anything, and it's just going to be the same thing, but on the screen.
Yeah, basically. Oh, you took that musical and put it on the screen, and now it's bad there too.
Wow.
And more people can just see how bad
what
that
flavor
musical
of
was.
bad do you want today?
Do you want bad in a theater or bad in a different kind of theater? Do you want it in an RE theater or an ER theater?
All right, very cool.
Mal Gusso, or Gusso, of the New York Times said of the original 1993 production, as Mr. Lerner knew, the point of Camelot was the ending. After losing everything, wife, trusted friend, round table, kingdom, Arthur realizes the importance of having experienced one brief shining moment. The glory that was Camelot was, of course, a feeling later associated with the Kennedy presidency. Hearing the final chorus of the title song, a theatergoer may respond with a memory of a time of idealism in our country, and also of the rich legacy of Lerner and Lowe's musical theater.
I had to end on a good
Very
one.
positive.
I had to be how would you frame that positively? That's the best you could do. Talk about
guess if
the
you-
real world.
If you only listen to the last song, then it seems like it was a good show.
You know what? That's a good point, Andrew.
As long as you ignore everything that came before it, it's pretty decent. Reminds me of Kennedy.
It's so crazy that in 1993 they're talking about lost idealism when really that comes off as the most idyllic time in the world to me. No wars, nothing terrible going on, no incompetent presidency destroying the world.
They're not talking about the loss of an idyllic time. They're talking about the loss of idealism. 1990s was right after Reagan had decided that it was the end of history and that we can no longer move forward. Idealism
Shit, you're
was
right.
dead.
And still is.
It still is dead.
Let's hope one day we'll get it back, but it might take a couple things happening.
A couple things.
On that note, let's go into a mid-show announcement.
Yippee!
Whee!
Yahoo!
Wah! Hey guys, sorry to interrupt you in the middle of the show, but we've got a shill at you. Andrew, tell us about Patreon so I can read some names.
Sure, Patreon is where you can go if you'd like to donate some money to us so we can keep the show going, and you also get some extra perks, like commentary tracks, and Gallivant podcasts, and the Glee podcast, and the everything.
Video
Frosty Vernon.
episodes.
Video episodes, excellent. You get to see our faces while we talk, isn't that excellent? I mean, I wouldn't want to do it, but you guys might want to see my face.
Me and Andrew are kissing right now. You don't know that. But...
It's true, you don't know if we're not. We could be lying, but Jess, don't give it away.
Oh, come on, baby.
All right, our current patrons are...
Melissa Goldman, Terry Needleman, Jess the Stampede, Ewan Cassidy, Taskier, Fire September, Monica Thoreau, Mina Maneri, Brent Black, Haley Murray, B-Way Flicks, Nathaniel Stacey Coombe, Joseph Evans Green, Carrie Ahern. Thanks for the request, Carrie Ahern. Ira Gale, Jue Whiter, Christine Malmedel, Cole Birchfield, Mary Lou Choquette, John Vanals. Heck you, I go by Elijah now. John Donna, Max Lunig, Russ Walker, Musical Hell, Emily Gracie, Tablam, Kyle Summers, Janae C, Christina Francis, Liz Lim, Corey Wilmarth, Allison Stuller, Nothing is Certain Except Beth and Taxes, John Vanals, Thespian, Ren Cullen, Wait in the Wings, Lady Malvolia, Spectacle Machine, Leighton Ackles, Danielle Renix, Jacob Stroop, Robert Benjamin, Richelle T, Jessica Tubis, Genevieve Hartnett, Cass, Just Cass, Mitchell Young, Chai Teacup, Hayden Wilder, Katie McDonough, Genki Geist, Stekas, Timothy Keys, Jeffrey Machado, Jacqueline Spring, and Toon Van Essen. They give us a little extra financial support that helps us keep the lights on here at Musicals with Cheese. If you would like to join them and get fun perks such as Patreon-only commentaries, video episodes, and episodes a day early or even earlier, come join us over at Patreon! Alright guys, are we ready to start this?
Music time, baby.
Okay, I really like the opening number as an idea of a song. I wonder what the king is doing tonight, which is like Arthur pretending not to be the king with Guinevere, and they're just mincing about what the king is doing tonight, and then they eventually come to the conclusion the king is wondering what the peasants are doing tonight, which is an actually good conclusion in a fun way. It tricked me into thinking this might be a good musical.
Whenever the wind blows this way, you can almost hear everyone say, I wonder what the king is doing tonight. What merriment is the king pursuing tonight? The candles at the court, they never burn as bright. I wonder what the king is up to tonight. How goes the final hour as he sees the bridal bower being regally and legally prepared? Well, I'll tell you what the king is doing tonight. He's scared. He's scared.
Isn't it a bit weird that the first song is pretty far into the show?
Yeah, there's a lot of weird like set dressing of Merlin and all that. Like there was the overture, but
this is an early musical-ish, so it's not written structurally the same way you see a lot of modern shows.
No, which is also strangely like because these are the My Fair Lady guys, and My Fair Lady follows very closely to the musical theater structure.
Well, yeah.
And this does not, and I feel like that's part of the problem.
Well, I think part of my issue is, and the songs aren't necessarily bad, but they kind of just randomly come and go. There isn't really
there's no
like a
progression through them. They just kind of happen.
No, yeah, and there's just like songs that don't have a purpose. Like we have in Act 2, we have like songs that are just about nothing, and it's like this is where the drama's actually happening, and you guys are just singing about what simple folk do. It's like, what's the point here?
I agree, but I feel like this is one of the better songs, followed up a couple songs later by the song everyone knows, which is Camelot, and it is the famous one.
Camelot, that's how conditions are. The rain may never fall till after sundown. By 8 the morning fog must disappear. In short, there's simply not a more congenial spot for happily ever aftering than here in Camelot.
It's fine. They repeat the word Camelot a lot in the song, and it's a little bit...
That rhymed.
That's because a lot, and whatever. Ugh. I don't really love this song, and it is the best song in the show, which isn't
Yeah.
great.
I'm going to disagree. I think it's the second best. But like it's hard to
I'm
compare
curious as
these
to which
songs.
song you think is better.
We'll get there, and only because I've heard it outside of the show. Like
Okay.
in the show, most of these songs don't work.
Yeah.
But Camelot is the big one that everyone knows and talks about. And it introduces like Arthur's goals. Okay, but once again, the story itself isn't really focused on Arthur's goals, so the song is all for naught by the end of it.
Well, I mean, I think the show is about Arthur's goals, sort of. It's about that he achieves all of his goals and then fails in the end. He tragically fails. The problem is that there's so much filler that is not, it's not streamlined in such a way that you can really grasp that is the point of the show until the show tells you at the end of the show that's what it was about, you know?
Well, the emotional tension is really on Lancelot and Guinevere's. Like, it's in their laps.
Yeah.
And Arthur's, like, futzing around, like, I'm the greatest king in the world. I'm the great, 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 great King Arthur. And they're like, I love you, and please put your dick inside of me. I want to put my dick inside you. I'm French. Let's go.
They need something where Arthur is, like, happy that he succeeds, and there has to be, like, I'm on top of everything, and it's the best it's ever been, and then it's actually bad when it falls. Because as it is now, it's like there's no tension. Like, you even have a guy show up and is like, I'm going to destroy everything. And you're like, whatever.
Oh, well, no, you're like interested because he's like, I'm here to destroy the world and I'm a bad person. I'm going to destroy the monarchy. And everyone's like, what am I supposed to do? He's there. He broke no law.
Oh, boy.
Let's talk about C'est Moi, which is Lancelot's introduction song and probably the most fun, quote-unquote, song.
C'est moi, I'm forced to admit, 'tis I humbly reply. that mortal who these marvels can do. C'est moi, is I've never lost in battle or game. I'm simply the best by far. When swords are crossed, 'tis always the same, one blow and au revoir. C'est moi, so admirably fit, a French Prometheus unbound. And here I stand with valor untold, exceptionally brave, amazingly bold, to serve at the table round.
It feels a lot like Gaston, like kind of
C'est
machismo.
moi, doesn't that mean like it's me or something
Yeah,
like that?
it's me.
Yeah.
Like he's asking like all these questions, like who's the bravest, who's the best, and he's like, c'est moi, it's I'm the greatest, I'm Lancelot, I'm wonderful, I'm French.
Yeah. And you kind of expect him to be like opposition to Arthur in some way, and he
Right.
sort of is, but Arthur and Lancelot actually like each other a lot, and
They're
is
buds.
kind of, and Lancelot honestly is kind of like just a good guy overall. He's just got an ego, and that's about it.
And he likes to fuck his best friend's wife.
Yeah, which I mean, sure, whatever. You know, that's
Andrew's
cool.
done it like 5 times. I've seen it happen. I'm in the
It's
closet.
true, in a Superman outfit.
good pickup.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, C'est moi, that's a fine one. It is very similar to like the Gaston song, except for he's singing it himself, which makes
I
it
think
even more.
the performer of in the version we watched, Nathan Gunn, plays the role very well, and I thought he's much more suited to a role like this than he was as Billy Bigelow in Carousel, which he was also in.
He has a very good voice for it.
Great.
Like he's got that like gusto almost, or I'm not sure what you would say.
I feel like I could listen to him sing anything for hours. He's like a proper opera singer. He's not an actor, but he act fine. Like his acting isn't a problem.
I'm looking at the song list here, and it's frustrating how many songs there are that are just like filler, that are just here.
Yeah.
Like
There's only
the
one
lusty
more
month of May. Like what is the point of this song? There is
That's
no
a
point.
charm number. I like when that song happened, I knew exactly what I was like, oh, that's your charm number to like remind you that musicals can be fun because this is a brand new like format and you're
Except for it's following the C'est moi, which was also, I mean, I know that that's introducing a character, but that's also like a funny number. I don't know.
Well, it's meant to connect her and Lancelot to be like these two fun characters belong together, where Arthur is pretty much like, very much like, I am Arthur and I am very serious man, and I'm also quite pathetic in a way.
Arthur needed like a song about his ideals that
Yes.
took themselves more seriously, and to show that he's like really deeply attached to like his ideals are like justice and peace, and like he needs like that number that's about that. And I guess you could say it's Camelot.
It's
But
not,
that's
though.
more. It's not. Camelot is just about how Camelot's already the best place ever. We need a song that's like, this is how we become the most peaceful and just and perfect society. He needs like a song that's called like Utopia or something. Like I don't know.
I mean, there are moments where he pitches it in dialogue, like when he's like pitching
Yes.
the basic trial system. I thought that scene was funny. Like, I thought that was a charming moment that kind of worked, where he's pitching to like this barbaric soldier, like, no, they'll be on juries. He's like, then I stab the juries. No, you don't stab the juries. The juries decide whether or not you're guilty. And if you're guilty, I get to stab them, right? No.
Yeah, well, he needs something like a song, because the ending of the show is this big dramatic piece about how he failed and his ideals won't stand any longer or whatever, and he's very upset about that. And we never really get this big number where he's like, I've implemented these and I'm very happy about it, or these are what I was trying to do. I don't know. It doesn't tell the story that they're trying to tell.
I agree. Arthur,
I'm upset. I'm mad.
can I? Maybe this is unfair comparison to the thing I'm about to compare it to. You know what this show reminds me a lot of? Man of La
What?
Mancha, which is also a kind of complicated older story, but it works because they set up the characters' ideals despite it being like a little bit complex.
Well,
The
I mean,
Impossible Dream is a
Yeah,
great
The
song.
Impossible Dream is like perfect and couldn't go right into this show, but you need that song in this show.
You need a moment like that, and this has nothing like that. Like Act 1 ends on a weird like duet. Like it's not even like Arthur.
Yeah, is Arthur the main character, or is Lancelot the main character? Like
It's
we
the
don't.
question.
I don't even know.
Is Johnny the main character or is Mark the main character?
I mean, say what you want about the room, but I think it's pretty clear that Johnny is the
Lisa
main
is
character.
the main character.
Actually, that's true. Lisa is the main character in that.
The best song in this show by far is If Ever I Would Leave You, which is strangely the opening of Act 2, which is like usually the place of the fun number. But no, this is like the romantic duet, and it's gorgeous. Like, his song is perfection in and of itself in a very, very bad musical.
If ever I would leave you, how could it be in springtime, knowing how in spring I'm bewitched by you so? Oh no, not in springtime, summer, winter, or fall. No, never could I leave you at all.
Yeah, and it's between two characters that are not the lead, and
Yeah.
it's just a love number between the two.
Lancelot and Guinevere. But it's a great love number. Like, in a better musical. This deserves a better musical. This song.
Especially when you follow it up with a number by the bad guy that you're just introducing now, who does
In Act
nothing.
2, yeah.
In Act 2, can we talk about the bad guy for a second? We've talked about
Yeah.
him a little bit. He's awful.
He brings a little bit of life and energy to it, but in a way that you're like, oh, this could be exciting or interesting, and it's just
And
not.
then he
It
doesn't
leads
do
to nothing.
anything. Like, literally, you could just have Morgan Le Fay be like a fairy in the woods that likes to play pranks, and she
As
just
played by
does.
Fran Drescher.
Yeah, and she just plays a prank on King Arthur, and that causes the problem. Instead, they have this setup where Mordred, the bad guy, is like, I'm gonna get him to get overthrown by locking him in the woods by using Morgan Le Fay's magic. And he brings like, and you know what drove me crazy in the version I watched? They brought an actual chocolate bar, like
Hershey's
a
bar.
Hershey's. Yeah, like what? Like, and this is after the
Comedy, Andrew.
the entire first act never having like a reference to like modern day stuff or anything. And then suddenly in the second act, it's just like, here's a joke where he has a chocolate bar. Haha, the woods fairy likes the chocolate bar. It's like, what? Like, what is going on? Like, am I suddenly in like a Monty Python movie? Or like, am I still watching the Camelot musical? Like,
You know what? Spamalot is probably a better musical than this. I have not seen Spamalot, but I'm willing to bet it's a better musical.
I mean, even if it's not a good musical, it's probably better than this. This is pretty bad. Like, this is a very, very unfun watch.
I feel like this is probably your least favorite thing we've covered on the show. Like, right above We Will Rock You, maybe?
This is definitely above We Will Rock You. I don't know. There's some that I forget about because, like, I don't think about things that I hate all the time. But, like,
Well, that's
We
why
Will
I
Rock
like
You.
you so much.
In recent memory, We Will Rock You was very bad.
American Psycho, I know you didn't like, but there's enough
I don't think
redeeming
American
in that
Psycho.
show.
American Psycho is at least interesting enough, like that you don't want to like literally fall asleep while watching it. Although it is pretty boring, admittedly. But this one is like, oh my god. This one is like you took a tranquilizer and like you're trying to stay awake.
Oh, okay, pitch.
Sure.
Tommy Wiseau as King Arthur, nothing else changes. Would that be at least interesting to watch?
No. You gotta change stuff. Lancelot has to be played by
Greg
Greg Sestero. And we gotta, I don't remember the actress's name for Lisa, but we have to get her back.
Oh, Juliette, something.
Yeah, I think it was Juliet. I don't remember the last name though.
Juliette Danielle.
We got to get her back. Although I guarantee she wouldn't come back because she probably doesn't want to ever see Tommy Wiseau again in her life.
We'll cut down the sex scenes by 10%.
Good God.
And then the final scene is just them screaming at each other, and he's like, keep your stupid comments in your pocket.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much left to say about Camelot.
I mean, we could talk about the ending song, which is like a reprise. I like the lyrics and the message of it. I think that's the best part of the show. I don't know.
I think the idea of the ending is so good. I just wish that everything that came before it was better.
I would love to see a show about, like a king or a political leader that builds up their ideology and that it all crumbles for some external reason that they can't control and they lament it. That's interesting. The problem is that this show does the ending part and then nothing before it.
I agree. My God, this show just drained all the energy and love out of my life. Will I ever be happy again?
Look, if I have to see Christopher Lloyd bumble around a freaking dungeon or whatever he was doing, like saying funny quote unquote lines, I don't know. I'm gonna lose it. I didn't laugh at a single joke in this show. It was very sad.
They're not funny. Like, the show is not a funny show.
It's
The
just
jokes
not.
Okay, maybe one or two, but they were all from Guinevere. Like, she has like this really good dry delivery, Baron Maisie, in that. So a lot of it just was like very bad lines delivered very well, and they got chuckled out of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there any
What's
more
your
to say?
overall thoughts on Camelot and your cheese rating, Andrew?
My God, this was a freaking snoozer. It's a Z, stinkeroo.
You don't use that lightly. That is a word you do not use lightly.
You don't bring out stinkeroo unless you mean it.
All right, Bree, we got to have a stinkeroo sound effect. Find some stinkeroo sound effect. That's good. You bring out the stinkeroo. You know what? I'm afraid I'm going to have to pull out the stinkeroo button, too.
Yeah, and as far as a cheese rating, I mean, my goodness, does it even deserve a cheese? It's not cheesy. Like, it's not fun in any way. It doesn't, honestly, and half the time, and maybe it's the version I watched, but it felt like the person playing Arthur could not give half a shit about being there. Like, some of the lines were like, he was like looking at the audience and it was like he wanted them to like say the lines for him. I don't know.
Or it could have been like a Kelsey Grammer situation where the lines were off screen, off stage. On like a TV.
I don't even. It was just bad, and I'm sorry, and I don't like being super negative all the time, but this one was just not a good one. As far as a cheese rating, then my goodness, what do you give this? I guess like some sort of round cheese for the round table. I mean, but all cheeses are round generally.
There's a girl on Instagram that listens to our show and makes cheese while listening to it, and she like posts
really?
the entire like process of making cheese and like where she's at in the episode. It is great, and it brings me so much joy every time she does it.
I haven't seen that, but that's very interesting, and I like that. Yeah, cheese rating. I don't care enough about this show to give it a good cheese rating. I'm sorry.
All right,
Jess,
Juliet,
do you have
put
a
that
funny-
down.
Do you have a good one?
Camelot, big stinkeroo. I'm sorry, I'm bringing out the stinkeroo. I did not enjoy this at all. And I watched both the movie and the stage musical. Like, I put the effort in, and I tried. I really did. I don't like this show. This show is not good. I'm sorry, Carrie Ahern. I hope this isn't your favorite musical. I know people that have this as their favorite musical, and my God, I don't understand it. I don't get it. I want to so badly, but I don't think I can really appreciate this show. Maybe one day there'll be an adaptation that really takes the knives to this and creates something really interesting. But as of right now, this ain't it, Chief. This ain't gonna be it. So my cheese rating is something called Moonlight Fog, a white bloom rind ash-coated cheese with a deep, rich, mellow flavor. That is created by Camelot Valley Fine Artesian Goat Cheese.
Why does that sound like it's good cheese? You gave it a good cheese.
From Camelot. Yeah, Brie, what's your cheese rating on our discussion?
For this being one big stinkeroo, I would say that it was a very entertaining conversation. But I'm going to be completely honest with you, this does seem like a very boring movie or musical. I was reading the wiki page, and yeah, one big stinkeroo. So my cheese rating is a cheese called Spermise. It is a medieval English soft cheese made and eaten in the summer, and also called green cheese. And I chose this because it doesn't sound delightful at all.
Well, that also works in a double way because there's a song that goes like, oh, not in springtime or summer or fall. And since it's a summer cheese, it would be good. It fits.
Yeah, and I just like that it was called Spermise.
Well, that's what happens when he doesn't warm you and your eyes are open. And
Yeah, boy.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the queen and what's his name?
Lancelot, like, didn't warn her.
Lancelot.
She got the sperm eyes. Now we're kicked off the Broadway Podcast Network. That did it. Dude, BetterHelp listened to that ad and was like, we don't want our logo to be next to sperm eyes.
Whatever. I don't care.
You know who definitely doesn't care? Our wonderful patrons. Thank you guys for listening. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher at Musicals with Cheese. Please leave us a review on iTunes if you could. It's been a little bit since we got one, and we'd appreciate a really nice one. Lots of heart eye emojis if you could. We're on Twitter at Cheesy Musicals, Patreon Musicals with Cheese, Instagram Musicals with Cheese, YouTube page Musicals with Cheese. We have a patron-only podcast called Patreon with Cheese where we're covering Gallivant, and soon Brie and I will be doing commentaries on the Cheetah Girl films, where we're just gonna dive into that, and it's gonna be a fucking mess. Shoot us an email at musicaltheaterlives@gmail.com. Our title card is created by Jolene Casco. Thank you, Jolene Casco, for all the wonderful things you do. Our keeper of the cheese is Juliet Antonio. This show is produced by the wonderful, the beautiful, the kind, the sweet, the one of the coolest people I've ever met, Brianna Jones. Yeah, Bri, thank you for doing this and making this show possible, because God knows I'll never be able to go back to editing it. I had my feet up too long. Thank you to the Broadway Podcast Network for having us on the platform and not kicking us off. One day you'll take us to the firing squad, but it's not today. So guys, we'll see you next time on Musicals with Cheese.
Bye, everyone.
Camelot! Camelot!